And now we're going to bring up our last panel, and I'm going to ask Rebecca and RJ to join me. RJ, I'm going to start with you. When you look at the universities or programs that we actively recruit from, if you can tell the audience a little bit about which those are, and if you're not from one of those schools, how do you put yourself in a position where you can get a role here at Microsoft and Mojang?
Yeah, absolutely happy to talk about that. So my team, the university recruiting team, recruits from accredited universities across the US and across the world. So there's a good chance that if you're studying at one of those universities, then we have recruiters who review applications from those schools. Now, if you're studying at a university that's maybe like a 2-year technical university or something that doesn't fall into the category of a 4-year accredited university, um, there's other ways that you can gain skills that can help you get noticed by recruiters at Microsoft. And there's a lot of different boot camps and LinkedIn certification courses that are free and available for anyone who's interested. And those help build the skills that Microsoft and gaming companies around the world are looking for. So don't be discouraged if you aren't at a 4-year university. I think there's a lot of opportunity to get your foot in the door still. For those of you who are at who do fall under that category, we have an internship program that we recruit for, and as you met some folks who have gone through the internship program, like Rebecca and Ramitha, and so that one is open to anyone who is first through 4th-year students. We have internships for master's students and PhD students as well, if there's any folks from those degrees on the call. And I also want to just pitch that we have an internship program called the Explore Internship Program, and that's specifically designed for 1st and 2nd-year students who are really new to this world of technology and might not have a lot of experience in classes or in internships that are really hands-on in tech. And so the Explore program is designed for folks who are 1st or 2nd-year students to gain that experience. So we're actually looking for folks who want to experience that for the first time. So if you feel like your resume is lacking some technical background that you would have liked to add to an application, I would recommend looking into the Explore program as well.
Thank you. I love that. And I know that when we wrap, there will be information on where people can go for our internships. You talked a little bit about this, but if you could expand a little on the qualities that you look for in potential candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. So I look at a lot of resumes and resumes from all around the world. So I try to keep a few things in mind when I'm looking at candidates' resumes. And I also encourage candidates to keep things in mind when they're writing their resumes or when they're preparing for interviews. So as a candidate, whether it's on your resume or whether it's in interviews, I think that you should be able to address a few questions. And the first question is, why Microsoft? So if you're applying to Microsoft, if you're applying to other companies, why Google, why Meta, why Amazon, etc. But I can promise you that at some point of the interview process, someone along the way is going to ask you, why Microsoft or why this role? And so it would pay off to do a little bit of research on the company and some of the initiatives, the culture of the company, how we're showing up in the news, some exciting things that we're doing with technology and how we're kind of like breaking into the scene in that way, in some like new, very like exciting ways. So make sure to do a little bit of research on why this company that you're applying for. And then sort of drill down a little bit and ask yourself, why tech or why HR or why sales or why marketing? Kind of have a good idea of what it is about that discipline that gets you excited and would like get you excited to show up to work every day, and what you would bring to that discipline if you were to get an opportunity. And then even further down, the role within that discipline will be a little bit more specific. So think about the role. Look at the qualifications of the role and sort of the responsibilities that are outlined in the job post, and try to link some of your experiences to those bullet points or that paragraph or whatever it might be in the job description. So spend a little bit of time doing or doing some studying. Kind of treat like applying for a job or interviewing as like you're studying for a test. You want to show up prepared. You want to show up with some good examples and just kind of ready to talk about your resume. So when you're showing up for or when you're applying for jobs, make sure that you are showcasing some of the important skills that will help you be successful in the role. So some things that we look at as recruiters, we look at like how are you passionate about technology or about the role that you're applying for, and how do you apply that not just in the classroom but also outside of the classroom? So is it that you're volunteering at a local organization that teaches coding to high school students, or are you um, part of a student group that meets on a weekly basis and talks about these topics? So make sure to outline some of those things on your resume. It's also good to list some of the courses that are relevant to the role, and then what you've learned, what are some of the skills that you've picked up in those courses. When you're talking about your experiences on your resume, it's important to focus on sort of the impact that you had, how you collaborated, but also what you contributed. Because if you just write something very general, like I was in a group and we worked on this project, that doesn't really tell me sort of what the group did and what you did. So it's nice to sort of break it down a little bit and be a little bit more descriptive. Um, then the last thing I want to say is some people ask me about like GPA and or the grades that you get in school, if that's super important. And I think it's really important to study and turn in your homework and do well on tests if you can and do your best. But if you get a grade that you weren't expecting, maybe you got a B or a C and you were hoping to get an A, don't be so down on yourself. Don't take that as a huge defeat. Don't think that that's not going to land you a job. Focus on the quality of the experiences that you've gained and try to highlight that in your interviews and that in your resume, and don't get so caught up on the GPA or your grades, but continue to study, because I need to throw in that caveat. GPA is important and studying is important, but yeah, so that's just some of my tips as a recruiter and sort of some of the things I've seen over the years.
I think I'm going to tell both my kids that part again after I see them tonight. RJ, the things that you were talking about also, I think, are so important for people to understand. You're all beginning probably your journey right now, but I can tell you, and I'm sure everybody on the panel can tell you, that when you're interviewing, your preparation, your enthusiasm, your ability to keep that curiosity and show that you did your homework. And even the thing of even practicing with somebody else so that they hear how you are communicating is so important. Whether it's your first job that you're interviewing for or your 50th job. Hopefully it's not your 50th job.
Yeah, that brings up a really good point, Ava, actually, that I forgot to mention is like, there's ways to link a lot of different jobs that you've done over the years, kind of like what Renee was saying in the introductions, how he takes a little something from every role that he's been in, and that's what got him to Microsoft. And you can convey that message on a resume. You can talk about, like, let's say you were maybe a manager at a McDonald's for a summer or something like that. You can talk about some of the leadership skills that you displayed in that role. You can talk about how you organize timesheets or you organize a shift schedule, and like increased productivity, and was able to get more people through the line in a certain amount of time. So there's a lot of ways that you can take skills and kind of make them transferable skills to the role that you are applying for.
Great point. Great point. Okay, so the last question I'm going to ask of Rebecca. Rebecca, you are a success story of someone who started as an intern and later transitioned to a full-time role here at Mojang. So would love to hear a little bit about your journey. And if you could talk about specific projects or tasks that you specifically worked on during your time and how that contributed to your growth here.
Yeah, so I did actually do the Explore Intern program at Microsoft that RJ talked about. I didn't have a lot of like computer science specific experience on my resume. And And before I actually got that opportunity, I spent my freshman year applying for lots and lots and lots of positions. I had a goal to sit down like every Friday afternoon when I didn't have class and apply to 5 positions. And I think I did that for multiple weeks. So I think I had somewhere in the ballpark of 100 applications, and I heard back from 3 or 4, and I got 2 of them. Then ended up at Microsoft as one of the 2 that I ended up choosing. And from there, made some connections with people on the education team here at Mojang, because I was reaching out to them as I was interested in some of the lesson plans and things, and how so my student organizations could use Minecraft education. And then it turned out that they were actually looking for interns. And so I got to transition over there. So it's a little bit of like right place, right time, but also like I wasn't only applying for computer science related positions at that point, because freshman year I was still an aerospace engineering major. So like Microsoft was kind of a like long shot one for me. It was like that was my minor and I was kind of interested in it. But grew to be more interested in it as I was taking more computer science classes and getting more into that. But it's like if at any point I had like ruled myself out because I'm not a computer science major and maybe I'm not the most qualified for the Microsoft internship because I'm not, or like my previous experience on my resume doesn't really lend itself to that. Like if I'd counted myself out, there would have never been that opportunity. And you never know like what a recruiter is going to pick off your resume. Like I had the experience where I was teaching elementary and high school and middle schoolers, like game design and coding. And I didn't count that as serious programming experience, but I think somebody ended up seeing that and taking a chance on me. So like definitely what RJ said about your resume and structuring it certainly applies, but different recruiters are going to see different things. So you just never know when somebody's going to see something they like on your resume. So then at Mojang, I was lucky enough to get to work on some projects that are like real projects. There are things that my team had on their backlog that were ready to go out, like needed to be done, were already planned to be done. Weren't necessarily planned to be done like as soon as they were, just so they had some buffer time. But I worked on a project my first summer that was related to creator tools. So we were creating like item and block events. So like you use this item and this thing happens, and you place this block and this thing happens. And we another intern and I set up that whole system and got to watch that like ship behind an experimental toggle and watch some like creator maps get to use that tech. It's really cool to like see the thing you worked on pop up on Twitter. But like through working on some of those real projects, we got experience like thinking through a problem and thinking through a solution to that problem that's going to be able to fit with a code base that already exists and is bigger in scope than just a university project, and like has to serve a broad audience. So just lots of like different ways of thinking about the problems that's a little bit larger than what you end up thinking about in university. So I like, as someone who interned at Microsoft 3 times through university, I really feel like my education that I got was split a lot between what I learned in school and what I learned in a workplace environment.
I love that. And I also appreciate, Rebecca, your don't discount yourself, don't discount the work that you've done, because people pick up on different things. So that's really, really sage advice and wonderful information for everybody to hear. So thank you so much, Rebecca and RJ.